Hello, welcome to the 64th edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today I'm going to talk about Kingdom of Solomon. It is a game for 2 to 4 players. It's a Euro game. It's got worker placement. It's got a little bit of area control. It is a light Euro game in that it plays pretty quickly. You can get this done in about an hour. And I would expect even with 4 players, you could get it done in around an hour once everybody knows the game and is familiar with it. It's got worker placement, like I said, but it has enough sort of little nuance and sort of subtleties in there and enough different things from your typical worker placement that I think it'll be something fresh for fans of Euro games. So let me just jump into it. It's called Kingdom of Solomon, and it takes place in the Kingdom of Solomon. So back in a historical time period, in the time period not usually discussed or the topic for a game, for a Euro game. And it's kind of nice to see something a little bit different there. And the thematics and the theme are a little bit loosely coupled. They're not too tightly integrated, but there's enough there and enough sort of with the kind of Israel or the Hebrew nation at that time sort of at its peak. That's sort of interesting to keep in mind as you play. So that's just kind of, it's kind of underneath the covers, not really tightly integrated with the game. But let me explain how the game itself works and then come back. Alright, so let me give you a quick breakdown of the components here. You can see you got the board. There's a map of the Kingdom of Solomon. It's sort of like modern day Israel there. You've got some cards here that will come out. These are building cards that you'll be building. You've got the temple here. You can also build the temple. A little market over here and a turn order track there. Over here you can see you've got some pieces that the players will get. The players will get these pawns, which are the workers that they'll place out on the board, as well as these teeny tiny little houses or buildings. And you put these in here. When you build a building, you can claim an area for your own. You'll also get an assortment of different colored cubes, and these are different goods like copper and gold and stone, etc. You also get these white cubes, and the white cubes are used when you build parts of the temple. So when you build the temple, you're going to build here from the foundation up to the columns at the top. And when you build a section, you just put a white cube in there. As soon as you fill up that bottom row, then you go to the next row and the next row. You also get these wooden logs here for roads. And so when you build a road, if you have a area here that you control, you can actually build a road out of it. So if you're familiar with worker placement, normally you would place a pawn here, and then you'll collect this good at the end of the turn when everybody resolves all their pawns. But the nice thing about these roads is you actually can place this here, so you'll collect that good there as well as any good that's connected to it. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a minute. You also get these favor tokens here. So when you build in the temple, you actually can either choose to take points when you build a section or one of these favor tokens, and this will give you control of the high priest. One thing to mention is that there aren't enough favor tokens for every game. So if you wanted to grab like 6 pennies or 6 little dimes to throw in there, that'll do it. I believe there was some kind of communication error, but it's not the end of the world. You just throw in 6 pennies and away you go. Now you've also got these building cards here. And so you can see on the right hand side there's the cost in cubes that it costs to build. And so what you do is you'll build this building, and then you'll get that many points, as well as now this will be in front of you, so you can actually put your pawn right on this and then use whatever effect that the building provides itself. Also, when you build a building, you will go and place one of your tokens here anywhere on the board that you choose. And then so you build the building and place that there, and then now you've got control of that space. Now some of the buildings have this little icon here with the building with a line through it. So if you build one of these, then you don't actually build a building. Finally, you've got all of these fortune cards, and there's a whole mess of these cards, and you can get these cards in a variety of ways. These will give you goods or points or other little effects. They're not super game-changing effects. They're not going to break the game. They're not that dramatic, but they are useful, and you will want to be having your share of these in the game. So let me break down the turn structure. It's pretty straightforward. Now what players are going to do is in turn order, determined by this turn order tracker, they're going to take turns placing their pawns on the board. So maybe green will place here, the gold space, red will place here. Everybody's going to place their pawns out. Now you've also got some spots up here on the side, and I'll explain those in just a second. So you can place pawns in any of these areas on the map or any of these spots, as well as there's 3 special spots. You can see 1, 2, 3 special spots, which I'll go into in a minute. So after everybody's placed all their pawns out, you're just going to resolve in turn order all of the spots. So if you collect any goods, you'll get all your goods. If you get any effects from any of the special spots you may have placed a worker on, any spots that you may have had a building to put on, like this one will give you 3 green cubes, you'll get all that cubes there. And then you're going to resolve all those, and then once everybody's gotten all the goods and effects that they need, in reverse turn order, you're going to participate in this market. Now, one action at a time, each player is going to either sell a cube by putting it into the market, or let's say this cube is here, remove a cube and buy a cube. Now the money in the game is actually your points. So each player is going to start the game off with 10 points or 10 money in the game. So if this gold cube was here for me to take, it would cost 7. So I would take that and then I'd lose 7 points going down to 3. Whereas if I had sold this copper here, you can see this is 6, I'll get 6 points going back up to 9. So players will go around and either buying a cube or selling a cube. If you choose to pass, then you're out of the market. So this is a real kind of interesting mechanism, and it plays out very differently from 2 to 4 players. You can imagine that, maybe people didn't get all the cubes they wanted from the map here, and there's certain cubes they need, so people may sell an extra gold that they have for a lot of points, maybe so they can buy a couple other cubes, hopefully, that are in the market later. Whereas in a 4-player game, there's a lot of competition in the market. It's going to kind of go and be pretty active from turn to turn. But where in a 2-player game, it's interesting because the cubes maybe will sit here from turn to turn for longer periods of time. So that's it's a cool aspect of how the game plays differently from 2 to 4. So after the market phase, after everybody's passed there, then we're going to go into the building phase. So you have a few options for you on your turn. First of all, you can build one building on your turn. So you can choose any of these buildings and build one of them. Again, you get the number of points available on the building, you need to pay the cost on the right hand side, and then now this will be placed in front of you, and you've got your own little personal effect that nobody else can use. And as well, you will put a building marker on one of the empty spaces of your choice. Secondly, you can build a road, or as many roads as you want. And the cost for the roads is down here at the bottom. It's 2 wood and 1 green cube. And you can connect from a place that you own, it must be starting at a place that you own, to an empty spot that doesn't have one of these building spots to put it. So you can go from here to a spot with no building, or if you owned a building, you could go from building to building like this. And like I alluded to before, the nice part about this is, let's say I had all 3 of these connected here, and I was the green player. Well, I can only place my pawn there if my building is there. There's an exception related to the high priest, and I'll talk about that in a second, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to put your pawn here, and then you're going to collect all of the connected goods here. So I could put a guy here and get a gray, a green, and a yellow. I could also put a guy here, and I would get all 3 of those again because they're all in that same network. So in this way, you're kind of starting to build your own little niche of this kingdom and kind of lock down and dominate particular resources. And you can see there's only 1 gold spot on this map. So this is a key little area here. And there's a couple other little key areas which I'm not going to reveal. So you can build a building, you can build a road, or as many roads as you want. Then you can also build the temple. Now the temple changes from the foundation to the structure to the columns at the top. So for example, the foundation takes a gray plus any cube. And then you have a choice. You can either claim one of these favor markers here or take 5 points. And that's the choice for all of the foundation spots. Whereas the structure costs a gold and any cube, and you can take a favor marker or 7 points. And the column can be a favor marker or 10 points. So those are your options. You can build a building, some roads, and as many temple spaces as you want. Now the game's going to end in one of 3 ways. A, the temple is filled up, and that will signify the last round of play. B, all of these empty building spaces are full up. Or one player has placed all 5 of their colored buildings onto the board. So let me just talk about some of these special spaces really quickly. So in addition to the map spaces and any buildings you may have built, you've got these special spaces here which are always available. This, for example, this first one will let you draw a fortune card. This one will just give you 5 points. This one will let you actually steal a resource from your opponent. This one will let you trade one cube for another cube. This one lets you actually collect an additional cube from a spot you may be on. So if I had a worker here that gave me 2 green, if I also had a worker here, I could get +1 out of that, so I get an additional green of any spot that I was on. Now there's also 3 extra special spots. Now the cool thing about these extra special spots is, let's say players are putting their pawns out, they're starting to run out of their pawns. Well, to place in these spots here, you have to place whatever you have left. So it's like a game of chicken. So I've got 3 spots, I know I need these cubes here, red's starting to place, and then these spots are really good effects, and I'll explain them in just a second. So what the game forces you to do is place all of your remaining pawns on there, using up and wasting all of the workers that you have, so you can't go and place anywhere else on the board, but you've now controlled that spot. So it's a really fun little aspect. So this first one is available in all games, either 2, 3, or 4 player, and this one will actually let you switch the turn order, moving you to first, and you get 3 points times your current order. So if I was red and I put all my pawns there, I'd get 3 times 2 points, 6 points, and then I'd go up to first. Now this second spot here is only available in a 3 and 4 player game, and this one will let you draw 3 fortune cards, which is really good because those fortune cards are a lot of free points and free resources. Finally, we have this spot here, which is only available in a 4 player game. And so if you decide, okay, I'm going to put all my remaining pawns here, I'm going to get 1 resource of each type. And that's really tempting to do even early on. Maybe you've only placed 1 or 2 pawns and then you're like, that's too good. I need 1 of each resource because that's really strong. Finally, we've got the High Priest here. Now the High Priest goes to whoever has the most of these favor tokens here. So whoever currently has the most of those, they'll go ahead and just put a marker in there. And what they can do is they can actually place a worker in an area controlled by another player. So if red controlled that and I was green, I could place this here once per turn. So I could, 1 of my workers per turn I can place in another player's area. And I also get the benefits if they're connected to any other areas here. I can use that up and use that region. So that's also pretty strong. And not to be forgotten, you also get 20 points at the end of the game if you control the High Priest. Alright, hope you enjoyed that overview. This game's got a lot of elements that I really like. It's got the whole, you place pawns, and then as you run out of pawns, you have to push all your workers in one of those bonus places. So there's a tension to, the worker placement. It's not the same every time, each round it's different. It's got variety in the way that those building cards come out, because when you get a building card that you put in front of you and then you can place your worker on it, and some will give you 3 wood or 3 green cubes or 3 stone cubes. So the strategies are going to change based on the cards coming out, and it's not really that random, but you've got to sort of be able to adapt from game to game. You can't always go, well, I'm going to do the temple building strategy, or I'm going to do just the pure building strategy, because you've got to adapt to how the cards come out and what resources you're going to have the most of. And the market's a really kind of fun little aspect of the game, and it seems to, I played this with a couple different groups of folks, and that plays out pretty differently. One thing to keep in mind with the market is, and I've lost a game like this and won a game like this after I learned, you can dump all your cubes if you think it's going to be the last round, and you could just start selling cubes off, so getting points that way, because if you set yourself up for that. So I got hosed one time and then I used that on somebody else, so that's cool. I like the market. Yeah, the last aspect I like is that whole area control, where you put the buildings down and you start kind of growing your area of what you are going to dominate. And that's a really cool aspect, because you kind of you corner the market on, let's say, gold or copper, or you have fully corner it, but you start to have a corner of it. So yeah, it's got a lot of good elements, and it plays really quick. After everybody's learned the game, you can really kind of pump it out. And it's got some things in common, obviously, with Caylus. It's got the worker placement, but it's also got the whole thing of, like, how many cubes does he have of this, and how many cubes of that does he have? and okay, he's got these, so he must be trying to build that building. So either I need to switch the turn order, maybe I need to use the thief. So it's got sort of that watching of things, so the AP can kind of get in there. But I'm kind of an anti-AP person, so I like to learn games by practice, not by analysis. Anyway, but so yeah, it's a very fun game, and the theme's different. Minion Games has been doing, a lot of these sort of hybridish, or I don't know, just Euros with a different theme. Like they've got Great Business, which is Euro-y, but also for a younger set of players. And this is a Euro game, but it's in Israel, and we've got other ones coming out, and so that's good company to keep your eye out for. Thank you.